The orbital defense platforms around Earth fell one by one as the Galactic Empire's invasion force methodically dismantled humanity's defenses. Commander Ju Park watched in horror from the bridge of the U.S. Defiance as the last human outposts went silent. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Do-Yeon Kim looked up from his console, face ashen. "Earth Command is gone. We're the only military vessel that survived the initial assault." Ju closed her eyes briefly. The Defiance was humanity's first and only experimental deep space vessel, equipped with technology that even the Empire had never encountered. Now it was humanity's last hope. "Plot a course away from Earth," she ordered. "We can't help them if we're dead." As the Defiance disappeared into the darkness of space, Ju made a silent promise to the billions left behind. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The bridge fell silent as the blue-green sphere of Earth shrank on their view screens. Tears streaked down many faces, but no one made a sound. They all knew what was at stake. "Engine status," Ju asked, breaking the heavy silence. Chief Engineer Minho looked up from his station. "Quantum displacement drive is operational. We can engage whenever you're ready, Commander." Ju nodded. "Take us out of the system. Maximum displacement." The stars blurred as the Defiance activated its experimental drive. Unlike the standard warp engines used by the Empire, the quantum displacement technology didn't just move through space. It partially shifted the vessel into an adjacent dimension, making it nearly impossible to track. "We're clear of solar system boundaries," reported Navigator Subin. No signs of pursuit. Ju stood from her command chair and faced her crew. 15 men and women, all that remained of Earth's space defense force. Their faces showed exhaustion, shock, and grief. "I know what you're all feeling," she said. "I feel it too. But we don't have the luxury of mourning right now. Our planet may be occupied, but humanity is not defeated. Not as long as we're still out here." Medical Officer G approached the commander, scanner in hand. "You're injured, Commander. That cut needs attention." Ju touched her temple, surprised to find blood. In the chaos of escape, she hadn't even noticed. "Later," she said. "First, we need a plan." In the ship's tactical room, the senior officers gathered around a holographic display showing the Empire's fleet movements. "Their attack was precise," said Security Chief Tayo. "They knew exactly where to hit us and when." "How did they get that information?" Ju studied the pattern of the attack. "They've been watching us for longer than we realized. Probably intercepted all our communications." "What do we do now?" asked Do-Yeon. "We're one ship against an entire empire." Ju's eyes hardened. "We gather intelligence. We learn their weaknesses, and then we strike back." "With what?" Taho challenged. "Our weapons are advanced, but we can't take on their entire fleet." "We won't have to," Ju replied. "Not if we're smart about this." Over the next days, the Defiance maintained a stealth orbit around a distant moon in a neighboring system. The crew worked in shifts to repair minor damage from their escape and take inventory of their resources. Ju sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the limited data they had on the Empire. They had encountered Imperial scout ships before, but Earth's leaders had dismissed them as random alien visitors. No one had imagined they were the vanguard of an invasion force. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Minho stepped in, carrying a datapad. "Commander, I've been analyzing the Empire's weapons technology based on what we observed during the attack. And their energy weapons are powerful, but they follow predictable patterns. More importantly, they seem to have completely abandoned projectile technology." Ju raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning our kinetic cannons might be very effective against them. They don't appear to have shields designed to stop physical projectiles." For the first time since the attack, Ju felt a spark of hope. "Good work, Minho. What about their tracking systems?" "Primitive compared to our quantum tech. They rely on tachyon fields for detection. We can easily avoid those. Ju nodded slowly, an idea forming. So we can hit them without them seeing us coming. A week passed as the crew of the Defiance established a routine. They saved power by keeping most systems on minimal function. Food would last 6 months if they were careful. Water was recycled efficiently. During a routine sensor sweep, Communications Officer Yuri suddenly straightened. "Commander, I'm picking up Imperial transmissions. Heavy traffic." Ju joined her at the console. "Can you decode them?" "Working on it. Our AI is processing the language patterns now." Hours later, the senior officers gathered again as Yuri presented her findings. "They're celebrating," she said bitterly. "The Emperor himself is coming to visit Earth as their 10,000th conquered world. They're assembling something called the Victory Fleet as a show of power." Do-Yun shook his head. 10,000 worlds. How do we fight against that? "One ship at a time," Ju answered. "This Victory Fleet, when and where?" Yuri consulted her notes. 3 weeks from now, they'll gather at the Imperial shipyard in the Centauri sector before heading to Earth. Ju's expression turned calculating. "That's our target." "You want to attack their shipyard?" Tahoe asked incredulously. "No. We're going to follow the Victory Fleet, study it, and find the perfect moment to strike." The crew looked at each other nervously. "It's suicide," Subin said softly. "It's our only chance," Ju countered. "If we can destroy their Victory Fleet, we'll show the galaxy that the Empire isn't invincible. It might give other worlds the courage to resist." Minho nodded slowly. "The Defiance was built for this, to test experimental technology against unknown threats. No one knows what this ship is truly capable of. Not even us." Ju looked around at her crew. "I won't order you to do this. It's a dangerous mission with slim chances of success, but it's also our best hope for someday freeing Earth." One by one, the officers nodded their agreement. "For Earth," Do-Yun said firmly. "For humanity," added Jai. Ju felt a surge of pride in her crew. "Set course for the Centauri sector. Keep us dark. Minimal power signatures. We got 3 weeks to prepare for the fight of our lives." As the Defiance glided silently through space, Ju returned to her quarters. She opened a small compartment and took out a photo of her family on Earth. Her parents, her brother, her niece, all now under Imperial control. "I'm coming back," she whispered to the image. "And I'm bringing hell with me." 3 months passed with the Defiance operating in stealth mode at the edges of Imperial territory. The ship's quantum displacement engines, technology the Empire had never developed, allowed them to move unseen. "The translation program is complete," reported Science Officer Hyunwoo Lee. "We now understand their communications." Ju nodded, reviewing the tactical display. "And what have we learned?" "The Empire believes Earth is thoroughly conquered," replied Tactical Officer Mayan Kang. "They're already moving on to their next targets." Ju's eyes narrowed as she studied the intercepted Imperial transmissions. A pattern emerged, references to something called the Victory Fleet. "I need more information," she said. "We're going to infiltrate that outpost." Hours later, slipping through the Imperial base's security, Ju downloaded the coordinates and details of the Emperor's prized Victory Fleet, an armada preparing for a ceremonial tour of their latest conquest, Earth. The Defiance drifted silently through the void, its systems running on minimal power. Inside the ship, the crew moved with purpose despite their circumstances. For 3 months, they had lived as ghosts, watching and waiting. In the observation deck, Ju stared at the stars. The Empire's territory spread across thousands of systems, marked in red on her datapad. Earth was just one small dot among many. "Commander," Do-Yun said softly, entering the room. "You should rest. You've been up for 20 hours straight." Ju didn't turn around. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Earth burning." Do-Yun stood beside her. "We all do. But we need you at your best." She nodded reluctantly. Wake me if anything changes. Sleep came fitfully in her small quarters. Dreams of home haunted her, her mother's garden, the streets of Seoul where she grew up, the academy where she trained, all possibly gone now. The ship's alarm jolted her awake. She rushed to the bridge, finding the crew already at battle stations. Imperial patrol ship, Minho reported, passing within sensor range. Ju took her seat. Quantum displacement status. Holding steady, Subin replied. They can't see us unless they know exactly what to look for. They watched tensely as the Imperial vessel cruised past their position. Its sleek, predatory design reminded them of the fleet that had destroyed Earth's defenses. They're moving on, Tahoe said finally. We're clear. Ju released her breath. That was too close. We need to move deeper into the shadow regions. The shadow regions were areas of space where radiation and dust clouds interfered with standard sensors. The Defiance had been using them as hiding spots while gathering intelligence. During the daily briefing, Hyunwoo displayed his findings on the main screen. I've completed the translation matrix for the Imperial language, he explained. Their communication system is complex but surprisingly inefficient. They rely heavily on formality and protocol. Typical of empires, commented Jai. Ceremony over practicality. Can we intercept their transmissions now? Ju asked. Hyunwoo nodded. Already doing so. And what we're learning is valuable. The Empire considers Earth fully conquered, just another trophy world. Mayung stepped forward. According to their military channels, they've already reassigned most of the invasion force. Only an occupation fleet remains in Earth's system. They're overconfident, Ju said. Good. What else? There's frequent mention of something called the Victory Fleet, Mayung continued. From what I can piece together, it's a ceremonial armada led by the Emperor himself. Ju's interest sharpened. The Emperor. He's personally involved. Yes, it seems conquering Earth was a milestone, their 10,000th world. The Victory Fleet is planned as a grand tour of their recent conquests, with Earth as the final stop. The officers exchanged glances. The implications were clear. A chance to strike at the Empire's leadership. We need more details, Ju decided. Locations, timetables, ship configurations. Tahoe frowned. Our long-range data gathering has limits. To get that kind of information, we need to go inside, Ju finished. Find me an Imperial outpost. Something small, isolated, but connected to their main network. 2 days later, they found their target. A communications relay station orbiting a barren moon. Only a dozen Imperial personnel staffed it. Minimal defenses, reported Tahoe after their scans. Standard security protocols. Ju studied the station schematic. I'll lead the infiltration team. Minho, Tahoe, you're with me. Commander, Do-hyun objected. You shouldn't risk yourself. Send me instead. I need you to command the Defiance if something goes wrong, she replied firmly. This isn't up for debate. They prepared meticulously. Hyunwoo had created devices that would fool Imperial biometric scanners. Minho modified 3 Imperial uniforms they had recovered from a damaged escape pod months earlier. Remember, Ju told her team as they boarded the shuttle, we're maintenance workers from the Central Authority. Keep your heads down and speak as little as possible. The shuttle approached the station with forged identification codes. Ju's heart raced as they waited for clearance. Maintenance shuttle, you are cleared to dock, came the bored Imperial voice. Proceed to Bay 3. They landed without incident. Dressed in Imperial gray, they stepped onto the station. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, making them feel unnaturally buoyant. Console room is 2 levels up, Tahoe whispered, checking his disguise scanner. They moved through corridors, passing Imperial officers who barely glanced at them. The Empire's arrogance worked in their favor. No one questioned maintenance workers. Halt, a security officer suddenly called. Identification. Ju kept her face neutral as she presented her forged credentials. The officer scanned them, frowning slightly. Central Authority sent you. We weren't notified. Surprise inspection. Ju replied in the clipped tones Hyunwoo had taught them. Standard procedure after recent rebel activities. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Proceed. But next time, proper notification is required. In the console room, they found what they needed. A network terminal with access to military scheduling. While Taeho stood guard, Minho bypassed the security protocols and Ju downloaded the data. Victory Fleet specifications, she murmured, scanning the information. Departure dates, weapons loadouts, defensive capabilities. Commander, Minho warned, we have 3 minutes before the system detects the unauthorized access. Ju's fingers flew over the console, extracting every bit of useful information. She found the command structure, the planned route, and most importantly, the Emperor's personal schedule. Got it, she said, removing the data device. Let's move. They were nearly back to the shuttle when alarms blared through the station. Security breach detected, announced a mechanical voice. All personnel report to stations. Run, Ju ordered. They sprinted for the docking bay, dodging confused station staff. An Imperial guard spotted them and raised his weapon. But Taeho was faster, stunning him with a silent shot. They reached the shuttle as security doors began closing throughout the station. Minho threw himself into the pilot's seat and fired up the engines. Unauthorized departure, warned the station controller. Shuttle TC-17, power down immediately. Instead, Minho gunned the engines, blasting out of the bay seconds before the doors sealed. Defense turrets swiveled to target them. Brace. Ju called as energy blasts streaked past. The shuttle zigzagged away from the station, taking minor hits. Once clear, they pushed to maximum speed, racing toward the rendezvous point where the Defiance waited. We're being pursued, Taeho reported. 2 Imperial fighters. Just a little farther, Minho muttered, hands dancing over the controls. As the Imperial fighters closed in, the space ahead of them seemed to shimmer. The Defiance decloaked just long enough to extend its shields and draw in the shuttle. Once they were aboard, the ship vanished again into quantum displacement. On the Defiance's bridge, the crew cheered as Ju presented their prize. Complete data on the Victory Fleet. The Emperor himself will be aboard the flagship, she explained, displaying the information. His entire senior command will join him. Dohyun studied the fleet specifications. 50 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels. The largest concentration of Imperial firepower outside their home system. And our target, Ju said firmly. It's hardly a fair fight, Jihai observed. 1 ship against hundreds. Ju's lips curved in a determined smile. We don't need fair. We just need to be smarter, faster, and more willing to risk everything. As the Defiance slipped deeper into the darkness between stars, Ju reviewed the stolen plans one more time. The Victory Fleet would depart in 2 weeks. She had that long to devise a strategy that would make the Empire regret ever hearing of Earth. They think they've won, she told her crew. Let's show them how wrong they are. You want to do what? Dohyun stared at his commander in disbelief. Attack the Victory Fleet directly, Ju repeated calmly, standing before her senior officers in the Defiance's briefing room. That's insane, said Engineer Sun Woo-choi. It's their mightiest fleet. Thousands of ships against our one. Yes, Ju agreed, but we have advantages they don't expect. She activated the display showing the Defiance's unique systems. Our shield harmonics can adapt to their energy weapons. Our kinetic cannons use technology they abandoned millennia ago. They have no defenses against it. Even so, argued Mayung. The numbers. The Empire has conquered 10,000 worlds. Ju interrupted, but they've never faced humans before. Their tactics are rigid, predictable. They've never studied Earth's military history. She pointed to a specific sector on the star chart, the Proxima Void. That's where we make our stand. Silence filled the room as her officers stared at the display. The Proxima Void was a dangerous region of space, The remnants of a collapsed star created unpredictable gravity wells and radiation storms. You're asking us to fight in that? Tahoe finally said. Ships have been lost in the void during peacetime navigation. Combat maneuvers would be nearly impossible. For the Empire, yes, Ju said. Their ships are large, their formations rigid. But the Defiance was built for adaptability. Minho rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The quantum displacement drive could give us an edge there. We could shift between the gravity wells faster than they can track us. Exactly, Ju nodded. We use their size and numbers against them. Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the display. He studied the data from their raid on the Imperial outpost. According to their own records, the Empire hasn't fought a real battle in over 300 years. They'd grown used to easy conquests, species that surrender at the first show of force. Humans aren't like that, Do-hyun said slowly, starting to understand. No, we're not, Ju agreed. We're stubborn, creative, and we have 5,000 years of military history to draw from. The Empire has forgotten the art of war. They rely on size and power. We'll use strategy and surprise. Subin, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The Victory Fleet will follow standard Imperial protocols. Their ships will be arranged in a ceremonial formation, not a combat one. Their sensors will be calibrated for large objects and energy signatures. Added Mayung, warming to the idea. A single ship using kinetic weapons might slip through their defensive grid. Ju smiled as her crew began to see the possibilities. She unfolded her complete plan. We'll position ourselves here. She indicated a spot near the largest gravity well. When the Victory Fleet enters the void, they'll be forced to adjust their formation to navigate the gravity fields. That moment of transition is when they're vulnerable. We target their command ships first, Tahoe suggested. The Empire's chain of command is hierarchical. Without clear orders, their captains hesitate. Precisely, Ju agreed. One well-placed strike against their flagship, and we create confusion. In the confusion, we strike again. Sunwoo still looked doubtful. Our ammunition stores are limited. Even if we hit 10 of their ships, there are hundreds more. We don't need to destroy them all, Ju explained. We just need to destroy enough to make a statement, to show the galaxy that the mighty Empire can bleed. The meeting continued for hours as they refined the plan. Each officer contributed their expertise. Minho calculated the exact power requirements for the quantum jumps. Mayung analyzed the Imperial fleet formation weaknesses. Sunwoo modified the kinetic cannons for maximum impact. Later that night, Ju found Do-hyun alone in the ship's observation lounge, staring at the stars. Still think I'm crazy? She asked, joining him. He turned to her with a weary smile. Completely. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. You've known me since the academy, Do-hyun. Have I ever led you into a fight we couldn't win? This isn't like the training simulations, he said quietly. This is the real thing. If we fail, humanity loses its last defender. Ju nodded. And if we do nothing, humanity remains enslaved forever. I'm not asking for blind faith. I'm asking you to believe in what humans do best, overcome impossible odds. Do-hyun was silent for a long moment. My grandfather was a history professor. He specialized in ancient warfare. He used to tell me stories about how smaller forces defeated larger ones throughout human history. Like what? The Battle of Thermopylae, Hannibal crossing the Alps, the American Revolution. Do-hyun smiled slightly. Humans have a talent for doing the unexpected. That's what the Empire doesn't understand about us, Ju said. They see our technology, our resources, but they miss our greatest strength. We never give up, and we never stop adapting. Over the next week, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare. The Defiance underwent modifications, with every system tuned for the coming battle. They practiced combat drills in similar gravity conditions, learning to use the unpredictable environment to their advantage. Hyunwoo and Mayung devised a targeting system that would identify the specific weaknesses in each Imperial vessel. Sun Wu reinforced the ship's hull with additional plating salvaged from abandoned mining stations. 5 days before the Victory Fleet was scheduled to enter the Proxima Void, Zhu called her senior officers together for a final review. "The plan relies on perfect timing," she reminded them. "We'll have exactly 12 minutes between when their lead ships enter the void and when their formation stabilizes. That's our window." "What if they detect us before then?" asked Jai. "They won't," Taiho assured her. "We'll be in full quantum displacement until the moment we attack." "And after we strike?" Subin asked. "They'll throw everything they have at us." "That's when we implement Phase 2, Zhu said. She brought up a new display showing a complex series of jump coordinates. "These are calculated points where the gravity wells create blind spots in their sensor network. We hit and fade, never staying in one place long enough for them to lock on." The officers studied the plan, asking questions and suggesting minor adjustments. When they finally dispersed to their stations, Zhu felt a mix of pride and anxiety. The plan was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy, but it was their best hope. The Defiance arrived at the Proxima Void 3 days early. They used the time to map the current state of the gravity wells, which shifted unpredictably. Zhu spent hours in the ship's small gym, pushing her body to exhaustion in an attempt to quiet her mind. On the eve of battle, she recorded a message for Earth, not knowing if anyone would ever hear it. "To the people of Earth, and to all who resist the Empire, tomorrow the Defiance stands against the Victory Fleet. Whatever happens, know that humanity fought back. We did not go quietly. And if we succeed, it will be the beginning of the Empire's end." She paused, then added, "And if we fail, let it be known that we tried. That even against impossible odds, we chose to fight rather than surrender. That is the human way." The next morning, Zhu stood on the bridge as her crew took their positions. The mood was tense but focused. "Victory Fleet detected," reported Subin. "They're approaching the void boundary." "All hands to battle stations," Zhu ordered. "Quantum displacement at maximum." The Defiance hummed with power as it settled into position near the largest gravity well. On the tactical display, the massive Imperial formation appeared, hundreds of ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, a display of order and power. "They have no idea what's coming," Doyun said softly. Zhu nodded, watching as the first Imperial ships entered the void. "That's their weakness. They'd forgotten what it's like to face an enemy who refuses to be conquered." She took a deep breath and gave the order that would echo through history. "Prepare to decloak. All weapon systems online. Today we show the Empire that humanity will never surrender." Admiral Gaiyong of the Imperial Victory Fleet stared at the sensor readings in confusion. "A single human vessel. Here," he scoffed. "Obliterate it immediately." The Imperial fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their energy weapons charging. What they couldn't know was that Zhu had positioned the Defiance near the collapsed star's gravity well for a specific purpose. "They're firing," reported Doyun. "Shields at full," Zhu ordered calmly. "Execute pattern alpha." The Defiance's revolutionary shields absorbed the Empire's energy blasts, converting them to power. Then, before the Imperial ships could recharge, the Defiance launched its kinetic projectiles, simple, physical ammunition that tore through the Empire's unshielded hulls. "Target their command ships first," Zhu ordered. As the Defiance executed impossible maneuvers around the gravity well, the rigid Imperial formation became their downfall. Without centralized command, the fleet fell into chaos. Ship after ship exploded or drifted powerless as the Defiance systematically dismantled the Emperor's mightiest fleet. The swirling purple and black gases of the Proxima Void created an eerie backdrop for the battle. Radiation storms flashed like distant lightning, illuminating the massive Imperial ships as they entered the region in tight formation. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory, Admiral Gaiyong watched with pride as his fleet navigated the dangerous space. His career had spanned 2 centuries, yet he had never faced actual combat. The Empire's enemies always surrendered when faced with their might. "Status report," he demanded, adjusting his ornate uniform. "All ships maintaining formation, Admiral," replied his first officer. "Passage through the void proceeding as scheduled." "Excellent. The Emperor will be pleased with our—" Jiayong stopped as a warning flashed on the main display. "What is that?" His sensor officer frowned. "Detecting a small object near the primary gravity well. It appears to be a ship." "Impossible. No ship would be foolish enough to hide there." Jiayong stepped closer to the display, his eyes narrowing as the readings clarified. "A human vessel. Here." The officers exchanged confused glances. Humans were supposed to be defeated, their planet secured. Jiayong scoffed. "Obliterated immediately. A single stray ship is nothing but an annoyance." Across the void, on the bridge of the Defiance, Zhu watched the Imperial fleets approach. The massive ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, their sleek hulls gleaming even in the dim light of the collapsed star. "They've spotted us," Subin reported, 3 destroyers breaking formation to intercept. Zhu nodded, her face calm despite the overwhelming odds. "Right on schedule." "Their weapons are charging," warned Tao. "Energy buildup detected." "All crew, secure for combat maneuvers," Zhu announced. "Minho, are we in position?" The engineer checked his calculations one final time. "Perfect position, Commander. The gravity well will amplify our maneuverability advantage by 300%. "They're firing," reported Doyun, tension evident in his voice. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space toward the Defiance, powerful enough to vaporize mountains. "Shields at full," Zhu ordered calmly. "Execute pattern alpha." The Defiance twisted, its quantum displacement drive allowing it to partially phase between dimensions. The Imperial energy weapons struck their shields, which shimmered and hummed as they absorbed the massive energy influx. "Shield status," Zhu demanded. "Holding at 92%, reported Sunwu with surprise. "The absorption matrix is working better than expected. We're converting their attacks into usable power." Zhu allowed herself a small smile. "Return the favor. Kinetic batteries 1 through 4. Target the lead destroyer." Deep within the Defiance, ancient technology roared to life. While the Empire had long abandoned physical projectiles in favor of energy weapons, humans had perfected them. Massive rounds, accelerated to near-light speed, launched from the ship. On the Imperial destroyer, alarms blared too late. The captain barely had time to register the incoming threat before the kinetic rounds tore through his unshielded hull. The ship's reactor destabilized, creating a brilliant explosion that illuminated the void. Admiral Jiayong stared in shock as the destroyer vanished from his tactical display. "Impossible. How did a single ship—" He regained his composure quickly. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel." The Imperial fleet responded, hundreds of weapon systems targeting the Defiance. But Zhu had anticipated this. "Quantum jump," she ordered. "Coordinates Beta 3. The Defiance vanished, reappearing instantly behind the Imperial formation. Before they could react, Zhu called out her next order. "Target their command ships first. Fire batteries 5 through 8. More kinetic rounds launched, striking the engines of 2 Imperial cruisers. The ships didn't explode but drifted helplessly, their power systems failing. "They're trying to reorient," Mayang reported, studying the enemy movements. "Their formation is breaking down." On the Imperial flagship, chaos erupted as reports flooded in. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Relentless and the Dominion. The human ship is jumping between positions faster than we can track. Our formation is compromised in Sector 7. Jiayong slammed his fist on the command console. "Impossible. One ship cannot defeat us. Launch all fighters. I want that human vessel destroyed." Hundreds of small fighter craft poured from the Imperial capital ships, filling the void with swarms of deadly pursuers. They moved faster than their larger counterparts, adapting more quickly to the Defiance's jumps. Fighter squadrons approaching from multiple vectors warned Tao, "Our kinetic batteries can't target that many small craft." "We expected this," Ju reminded her crew. "Implement Countermeasure Delta." Minho activated a new system, one they had developed specifically for this battle. The Defiance released clouds of specially engineered particles into the gravity eddies of the void. As the Imperial fighters flew through them, the particles adhered to their hulls, drawn by their energy fields. "Now," ordered Ju. An electromagnetic pulse radiated from the Defiance. The particles activated, shorting out the fighters' guidance systems. The small craft spun out of control, many crashing into each other or being pulled into the gravity well. Ju wasted no time celebrating this small victory. "Back to primary targets. We need to hit their flagship." The Defiance executed a series of rapid jumps, appearing and disappearing around the Imperial fleet. With each appearance, they fired more kinetic rounds, targeting communication arrays, weapon emplacements, and engine systems. Ship after ship fell silent or drifted out of formation. The Imperial response grew increasingly disorganized. Without central command, individual captains made contradictory decisions. Some ships fired at empty space where the Defiance had been moments before. Others accidentally hit their own allies in the confusion. On the Eternal Glory, Admiral Jiayong watched in horror as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. "How is this happening?" he demanded. "It's just one ship." "Admiral," his first officer said urgently, "the Emperor is requesting an update." Jiayong paled. The Emperor was watching this humiliation in real time. Tell him we are handling a minor insurgent. The situation is under control." At that moment, the Defiance appeared directly in front of the flagship's bridge. Through the view screen, Jiayong found himself staring at the human vessel, small, sleek, and somehow menacing despite its size. "All weapons, fire," he screamed. But before the flagship could respond, the Defiance fired again. This time, their target was precise: the flagship's central command module. The kinetic rounds pierced the supposedly impenetrable hull, destroying the ship's primary communication array. Throughout the fleet, Imperial captains watched in shock as their flagship's lights flickered and died. The Eternal Glory drifted silently, its gleaming hull now scared and dark. "Flagship is neutralized," reported Mayung with barely contained excitement. "Imperial command structure is failing." Ju nodded, her face showing the strain of hours of intense concentration. "Continue the attack pattern. Target their heavy cruisers next." The battle continued for hours. The Defiance jumped from position to position, striking and vanishing before the Imperial ships could respond. Their shields absorbed attack after attack, converting the energy to power their systems. When the Defiance finally withdrew to the edge of the void, nearly half of the Victory fleet lay in ruins. The remaining ships had abandoned their formation entirely, some retreating in disarray, others trying vainly to pursue the phantom vessel that had brought them such devastation. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew was exhausted but triumphant. Minor damage reports came in from all sections, but the ship had survived largely intact. "I can't believe we did it," Do-Yun said, shaking his head in wonder. Ju looked out at the scattered Imperial fleet, the mightiest armada in the galaxy, now broken and retreating. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "Today we showed the galaxy that the Empire isn't invincible. Tomorrow, we show them what happens when humanity decides to fight back." As the Defiance slipped away into quantum displacement, news of the battle was already spreading across Imperial communications channels. The unthinkable had happened. A single human ship had decimated the Victory fleet. And somewhere in that vast galaxy, oppressed species began to wonder if resistance might be possible after all. News of the Victory fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species long oppressed under Imperial rule began to rise up, inspired by the human victory. On the Defiance's bridge, Ju received transmission after transmission from rebel groups and formerly subjugated worlds. The Emperor is requesting to open negotiations, Hanmu announced, surprise evident in his voice. Demanding our surrender, no doubt, Mayung scoffed. No, replied Hanmu. He's offering terms. He's afraid. Ju stood, facing her loyal crew who had followed her on what seemed like an impossible mission. Tell him we accept nothing less than unconditional surrender and Earth's complete autonomy. 1 month later, representatives from dozens of liberated worlds gathered aboard the Defiance. As Ju entered the conference room, the assembled aliens rose in respect. We wish to form an alliance, said the representative from Mera, one based on cooperation, not conquest, with humans to guide us. Ju looked around the room, thinking of how close humanity had come to extinction. Now they stood as architects of a free galaxy, proving that the human spirit, resourceful, adaptive, and defiant, could accomplish what thousands of species thought impossible. The Defiance drifted through space, its hull still bearing the scars of battle. Inside, the crew worked to repair systems and replenish their depleted ammunition stores. None of them had slept properly in days, but excitement kept them going. Ju sat in her command chair, reading reports from across the galaxy. The news was better than she could have imagined. Commander called Subin from her station. Another transmission coming in, this one from the Centauri sector. Put it through, Ju said. A holographic image appeared. A tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. This is Kelo of the Centauri Resistance. We have taken control of 3 Imperial outposts in our sector. We stand with Earth. Ju nodded respectfully. The Defiance acknowledges your courage, Kelo. Together, we will ensure the Empire never threatens our worlds again. As the transmission ended, Dohyun approached with a datapad. That makes 17 sectors reporting successful uprisings. The Empire is losing control faster than they can respond. What about Earth? Ju asked. This was the question that had haunted her since their victory. Still under Imperial control, but their forces are stretched thin, Dohyun replied. The occupation fleet has already pulled back to defensive positions. They're scared. Ju allowed herself a small smile. Good. Myung rushed onto the bridge, her eyes wide. Commander, you need to see this. She activated the main screen, showing an Imperial broadcast frequency. The image showed the Imperial Palace, a massive structure of crystal and metal that stretched into the clouds of the Empire's capital world. The Emperor himself stood at a podium, his face grim beneath his ceremonial crown. After the unfortunate incident in the Proxima Void, the Emperor was saying, his voice carefully controlled, "We wish to extend an olive branch to the people of Earth and their allies. The Empire has always valued peace and stability." Lies, muttered Tao. They value submission and control. And we propose immediate negotiations to resolve this conflict before further bloodshed occurs. The broadcast ended, leaving the bridge in silence. He doesn't mention that we destroyed half his fleet, Minho said with a laugh, trying to save face. The Emperor is requesting to open negotiations, Hanmu announced, checking his console, a direct transmission to the Defiance. Demanding our surrender, no doubt, Mayung scoffed. No, replied Hyunwoo, surprise evident in his voice as he read the message. He's offering terms. He's afraid. The crew looked to Ju, awaiting her decision. She stood, facing her loyal crew who had followed her on what seemed like an impossible mission. Tell him we accept nothing less than unconditional surrender and Earth's complete autonomy, she said firmly, and the freedom of any world that wishes to leave the Empire. The next weeks passed in a blur of diplomatic messages and strategic planning. The Defiance became the center of a growing alliance as more worlds broke away from Imperial control. Ships from a dozen species joined them, forming the nucleus of a defensive fleet. Earth was liberated 3 weeks after the Battle of Proxima Void. The occupation forces, cut off from Imperial support and facing a coordinated uprising from the planet's surface, surrendered to a combined fleet led by the Defiance. Ju stood on the observation deck, watching Earth grow larger in the viewscreen. After months in space, seeing the blue-green world brought tears to her eyes. "We did it," Do-Yun said, joining her. "We actually did it." "Not just us," Ju replied. "Everyone who refused to accept defeat. Everyone who kept fighting." The Defiance entered Earth orbit to cheering crowds. News of their victory had reached the planet weeks earlier, inspiring resistance groups to rise up against their occupiers. Now, as Ju and her crew descended to the surface, they found themselves hailed as heroes. But Ju knew their work was far from finished. The Empire still controlled thousands of worlds. The war had only begun. Representatives from allied worlds requested a meeting aboard the Defiance to discuss the path forward. Ju agreed, suggesting they use the ship as neutral ground for all species. 1 month after the liberation of Earth, delegates from dozens of formerly subjugated worlds gathered in the Defiance's largest chamber, hastily converted into a conference room. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors filled the space, some breathing different atmospheres through special masks, others floating in anti-gravity fields. As Ju entered, the assembled representatives rose in respect. The gesture, she knew, meant different things in different cultures, but the sentiment was clear. Commander Park greeted a tall, insect-like being from the world of Nera. "Your victory has given us all hope. For 1,000 years, my people lived under Imperial rule. Now we breathe free air." Similar statements came from around the room. Stories of oppression and newfound freedom. Ju listened to each, honoring their experiences. "What happens now?" asked a representative from the Pleiades cluster. "The Empire still has vast resources. They will regroup and attack again." "Then we must be ready," Ju said. "Not as separate worlds, but as allies." "We wish to form an alliance," said the representative from Nera. "One based on cooperation, not conquest. With humans to guide us." Ju raised her hand. "Humans will stand with you as equals, not leaders. We all have skills and knowledge to contribute." "But it was humans who showed us it was possible to fight back," insisted another delegate. "Your species achieved what none of us dared to attempt." "Because we had no choice," Ju explained. "Earth was on the brink of extinction. We fought because it was fight or die. And we won because the Empire underestimated us." The discussions continued for days. Plans were made for shared defense, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges. Scientists from different worlds began comparing notes, amazed at how the Empire had kept them isolated from each other's discoveries. 1 week into the conference, a final agreement was reached. The Alliance of Free Worlds was born, with each member planet having an equal voice in its governance. After the signing ceremony, Ju stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars. She thought of how close humanity had come to extinction. Now they stood as architects of a free galaxy. Do-Yun joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You should be celebrating with the others." "I will," she said, accepting the cup. "I just needed a moment to process everything." "The Imperial delegation arrives tomorrow," he reminded her. "The Emperor sent his first minister to negotiate the final terms of their surrender." Ju nodded. "They still don't understand what happened. They think this was about territory or resources." "What was it about then?" "A futuristic space battlefield featuring massive, heavily armored warships engaging in intense combat using advanced railgun technology. The warships have sleek, high-tech metallic hulls with reflective, shining surfaces illuminated by glowing blue and red energy shields. The backdrop is a deep space nebula with scattered debris from destroyed vessels. Close-up details include the intricate textures of the ship's armor, railgun turrets glowing with electromagnetic energy, and missile salvos streaking through space. The scene is filled with realistic lighting, reflections, and battle damage, emphasizing the sheer scale and destruction of the war." Highly detailed, cinematic, and ultra-realistic, with a focus on close-up views of the weapon systems and the intensity of the battle. 16:9 aspect ratio. Photorealistic style.